Alright, in this video we're going to get you introduced to a content management system called Wordpress. WordPress is quite ubiquitous. In fact, I think there are now more websites on the planet that use WordPress than websites that don't. It's a very awesome tool, especially for smaller websites. Probably for the large corporate enterprise websites or websites that have to have a lot of functionality to it or very unique, specific, custom stuff. WordPress might be a little underperforming for such things. But if you're just building a website for a barber shop, a lawyer, it's a great tool because there are so many themes out there that you can use ready to go, and really you just personalize them, not so much customize them, but it's good to know code and how WordPress works in order to get that personalization to where you like it. In this video, it's really going to assume that you're going to be able to figure a lot about how WordPress works on your own. What I'm going to do in this video is just point you in the right areas. So it's going to be a little less step-by-step instruction on how to do things, because you're going to have a lot of choices that you're going to make on your own, especially when it comes down to picking the WordPress theme. When you pick the WordPress theme, each theme is going to have its own nuance on how you get it designed out. And that's not something theme by theme I'm going to be able to do a video for. So you'll have to figure that out on your own. And but there are some things for the project that I'll be able to steer you so you're at least in the right direction. Okay, so let's get going with it. By now you should have your own login. I've created an install on WordPress for everybody in the class, and you each got your own unique login link. And while we were doing that process, you had learned that every web hosting company has a slightly different way of installing WordPress on your site. And I had made the mistake in class thinking that we were going to set username and passwords as we were setting up the install, but that wasn't the case for this hosting company. So it had been a while since I worked with that, but it was created for us, and we got an email. And so I have forwarded those emails to you, and in there were a link to set up your account for the first time. In which case I think you had to give your WordPress site a name, a tagline. You could set the country, time zone, perhaps. You had to choose the language, and then you got the login. So by now you should have a username and a password. That password should be quite obscure. You want to keep it that way. This is a place where it's very easy to get your site hacked if you have an easy password to guess. So don't convert your password to something that's easy to remember. That's going to get you in trouble. So let's go ahead and go in. I've set this up for the Philo site, and I've got my own password that I've already put in here. If you want to put Remember Me in here, that's fine. What it does is it remembers your password the next time you come. Some browser softwares are going to allow that, some won't. It just kind of depends. If you ever lose your password, this link here will let you reset it. It'll send an email to the email we use to set up your WordPress site. Alright, so let's go ahead and log in. Just to walk you through things again, if this is the first time logging in, you're going to see sort of a welcome to WordPress message screen here. I have removed it from mine, but that screen, if you're brand new to WordPress, is worth checking out. There's some good links on there to teach you how to use WordPress. I'm going to show you some things, but I think at this point you probably are good enough to figure out a lot of things on your own. So the first thing we want to do is get into naming your site. You have a lot of tools over here on the left sidebar, and we're going to go ahead to go to the settings, and we'll choose general. And this is where you can give or change your site title if you wanted to, and a fun class exercise website. Is this important? It can be, because some themes that you're going to use will pull this content in to display information on your website. So sometimes it behooves you to go ahead and put that in. The next part is your website address and your site address. Most of the time you want these to match exactly. Now if I was building this on a brand new site, let's say I had jimmysbarbershop.com and I was building this for a client, by default you might have jimmysbarbershop.com, and same with this. I'm not going to save this. It would pretty much mess up my entire site. But if you wanted to have the www in your address, you could change that right here. Now some people, when they build websites, have the www, and some people prefer not. Does it affect your domain? Yeah, it does, and it affects all the links within your site. So you do need to have your preference set here. And if you put that in there, then all you'd have to do is hit Save Changes. I'm not going to save those changes. We'll switch those all back. I'm going to keep it with the subdomain there instead of a www. Also, for the purposes of our class, we put everything in a WordPress folder. So we still have Philo 141.swanee.net. This is the one we did with Dreamweaver. What we've done now is we actually have a separate website on the WP file, and I didn't need admin. So your WordPress website is going to show up in this WordPress, this WP folder. And this is what my site looks like right now. Yours is going to look different. It'll have a default theme in there by start. So I just want to let you know, in order to see your WordPress site, you need to go to the WP folder of your site. And that way it's kept the WordPress install and what you did in Dreamweaver separate. So you kind of, in a way, have two websites going, if that makes sense. Alright, so that's why that WP, and that's how I set up all of the student WordPress sites. You'll have an email address. That's what we use for admin purposes. If you now we can set the time zone. By default it's Greenwich Mean Time. I'm not sure what UTC stands for, Universal Time Code or something like that. If you know what it is for Mountain Standard Time, I think it's -7. But you can also search for Denver, and that's going to be the nearest city to where you're at. So you go ahead and set that to Denver. You can choose the format and time formats that you want to use for your blog posts. Week starts on, generally we put it on Sunday. It doesn't matter if it's Monday. In some parts of the country, Mondays are like our Sundays. In the United States, businesses are closed. So that would be up to you. You have a site language. You could always go in and change that if you need to. So I'll just hit Save Changes. And all of that stuff is now set. So the site title, tagline, everything's been changed. Alright, so you'll need to do that almost any time you do a WordPress install. This is almost automatically the first place you come to make sure that these settings are all set to go. You've got some other settings that you can play around with. I think for the purpose of the class I'm not asking you to change any of these except for the permalinks. Once we get down here to permalinks, oh, there was one more setting you do need to set. I have to make sure that I put this in the visibility settings. Where is that? So that's under reading. You want to have this discourage search engines from indexing this site set. I'm going to make sure I update that to the assignment. Make sure on under reading settings, you check discourage search engines from indexing this site. Alright, and the reason why we're doing that is to protect you, the student, from being found. So if you're putting stuff on your WordPress site you don't want people to find, the search engines shouldn't. This means the search engines should be ignoring your site and not putting it into the search results. So please do that. Under the discussion, this controls all your blog post settings. I mean, the defaults are fine. If you want to play around with these, you can. It's up to you. Permalinks, that's the one we have to take a look at. By default, anytime you write a blog post in particular, it always wants to add the year, month, and date to the URL. That can get a little messy. What I prefer to do is a custom structure which is close to the post name. If you did the post name, it just puts the URL of your blog right there, but it puts it at the root level. So if you wanted to put it under your category level, you can do percentage sign category percentage sign. And that's just a known what you might call it, short code for the tags. And there's a link of up here that you can click on, and this would take you through all of the possible short codes for the permalinks. Oh, come on, you can go a little faster than that. Okay, while that's loading, I'll keep talking. But what I've done is in my things I've created categories for my posts. So you might have news, tips, company information. I mean, it just really depends upon your website. If it was a barbershop website, you'd have to say haircut tips for men, haircut tips for women, haircut tips for children. All of those could be different categories as you write articles. And this still isn't coming up. But anyway, you could check that out. Not sure why this is going so slow. I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to choose percentage sign category, and the place where I got that is right up here. They provide you what those are. So it changes it to a custom structure, and I'll hit Save Changes. I always have to remember to hit Save Changes. That's one thing that if you don't figure out soon in WordPress, you'll do a lot of work and you'll go away from a page without making the changes, and then sure enough those changes aren't there. To some degree, as you're working on posts and pages in WordPress, it autosaves a version for you and you can revert to that autosave, but you have to kind of know what you're doing. Sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't, just kind of depends. So there's the main things there that you'll need to check. Coming back to the assignments, just making sure I'm pointing you in the directions for everything, for the requirements. So for this site, you can pick any kind of site you want to try to build. If you want to do a business site, an art site, news site, I mean there really are a bunch of things. And so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to come to your themes under the Appearance menu. Now there are some default themes that WordPress puts in there for you. They were built by the company called Automatic. They're the ones who have built WordPress. And you can see there was a theme that I went out and got. Now if you have a theme that you've bought and downloaded, you could certainly add that theme by doing Add New, and instead of searching for themes you would upload a theme. So a lot of people in WordPress go out and buy what are called premium WordPress themes, and there are quite a few companies out there that now sell a pretty impressive variety of out-of-the-box themes ready to go for WordPress, and you just put your content and images in there and you got yourself a site. In this case, and if you did that, they would provide you a download. Most often it's .zip, and you would come here to upload that theme. You would find that zip file that you downloaded, and then that's what you would end up uploading, and then you would be able to choose that theme and use it. Alright, so we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and use one of these things. So let's say I wanted to use this Cordillera. Now the preview feature, you can try it, but the default content that they use usually isn't very helpful. So I'm going to just go ahead and install this. And I can go ahead and activate it. And then I have a theme. Now since I don't want to use this theme anymore, I could click on this and then delete it. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to keep all your stuff really clean. So if you have excess stuff, it's probably best to delete what you're not going to use. Alright, come on. It is interfering with my screencast. There we go. So I would just hit OK on the delete. And all of those files then are taken out of WordPress. Likewise, if I know I'm never going to use the 2015 theme, I can delete that. Now I might maybe keep one theme there in case I ever needed to switch away, but I think you get the idea. So now we've got a new theme here, and there's always ways you can, there are quite a few free themes that you can search for. So take your time in looking for a theme, make sure you're going to like it. So let's go and look ahead at the customization options. By the way, if I take a look at what my theme looks like with what I've got, this is now what my theme looks like. Still loading. Yeah, that's about it. So I don't even have a background image in here yet that it put in by default. So you have a good amount of work to do before this really looks like something. I'm surprised they don't have either that or it's just not loading. Most of the time they have at least a default background image. There it is. And in this case they've got sort of this video screen image, and that would be your theme so far. Alright, and then they've got different options, and this is where things are always going to change and be different. So you'll have different ways. You got a site icon, but that's not necessarily an image. Here's where you can change out your header. It recommends your header be 1920 by 72. And so forth, and you could change background image, colors, and so forth. So this is where you're going to have to figure out how the theme works, and they're all going to be different. Alright, so that would be where you change all of that. Let's see. Oh, there is a login. I kind of got ahead of myself. Let's go to the plugins. We're going to add, well, let's go to plugins so you can see what plugins are. These are places where you can add functionality to your WordPress site that isn't already built in. Generally speaking, a WordPress site is a blog, so you have content, you have images, and a blog, and you can add pages and a menu. That's really about it out of the box. So to add more functionality to your website, we do plugins. We're not going to do any plugins for this module. We'll do that next module. But there is one plugin I do want you to go get, and it is called Login Lockdown. There are other plugins that do the same thing. This is just one I happen to use. It always gets pretty good reviews, so, and pretty well supported. That's always important when shopping for plugins, is how well is it supported, because sometimes developers, they get a cool idea, they put something up, and then they don't support it, and then it becomes obsolete. So it's best to go choose plugins and themes that the developers are committed to maintaining. So we activate this plugin after I've downloaded it, and now you can see that it's activated. Now there are settings for the login lockdown under settings, and what this says is what happens is if somebody goes to your login page and just sits there and tries to guess your password over and over and over, at some point you get to lock them out, and you could say how long they're locked out, and it does it by IP address. So in this case, they're locked out for 60 minutes. Now that can also affect you. So if you go to your WordPress site and you forgot your password and you try 5 times, then you're going to get locked out for 60 minutes. So what this does is just helps prevent those spam bots that just sit there all day long and try to guess your password. So with this, it locks that particular IP address out for 60 minutes. And that's going to discourage most of those hackers. Alright, they're going for the easy stuff. So if you just make yourself a little bit harder, they might give up on you. That's what you're hoping for. Does this guarantee nobody will ever hack your website? No, not anywhere close. If somebody really wants to get it and they're good, they'll find a way. But this discourages this keeps you from being lowest hanging fruit for those hackers. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure you have login lockdown, but that's the only plugin I want you to install for now. Let's see, so we picked a theme. Try to choose a theme that has a different home page, like this one, where the page is going to be the page designs are going to be different than the home page. So like right now, if I go to pages, there should be a default page. This is a sample. I can click on this page. WordPress always gives you one starter page, and this is usually what they call it. This is a sample. And let's go. When you get to the page, you can see that you're going to have a page title. You get a URL. You can even change the URL if you want to. There's an editor. This works a lot like Microsoft Word, where at first you may only see this row. If you click this last thing, you get a few more options. You can see that if I select text, I can change heading tags. Paste as text is good if you're copying and pasting from Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word likes to put a lot of local spans into the web content. Spans and divs. And they're heinous, and you don't want those. You want your code really clean. And you can go to text view and you can see the HTML that it's writing. Now in WordPress, what's interesting is it leaves out the paragraph tags. If you put them in, that's fine and they'll work. But just to keep things cleaner, WordPress doesn't require it. So if I put them in, it takes them out. So really you don't have to worry about paragraph tags in the text view because WordPress knows they're going to be in there. Alright, but if you do want a single line return, you do need to hold the shift key, hit return, add something, and then when you come to text view, you'll see that it puts it on a line, and even the single line returns aren't saved. The code for it isn't. So, but it will maintain it and do it for you. So if it looks right here, if it looks like you've got paragraph returns in the visual view and you've got line returns, it is working. Just keep in mind that WordPress takes it out just because they know what you're doing. But H tags, block quotes, those kind of tags will show up, or any local spans or any divs that you put into your content, those will show up in the text view. So let's go. When you're in a page, you can see that you can update that page anytime you make content changes, and all this information is essentially saved in a database. That's what the MySQL database is in WordPress, and it puts it in there, and that's how it pulls the page together. So this actually doesn't go on to an HTML page like all in one place like it did for Dreamweaver. That's what a dynamic website is versus a static website. We can always go and view the page. So it lets you come to the site, and this is what it's going to look like. Alright, so this is a good example of where a page looks different than the home page. That's what we're looking for, is you've got a different home page from an internal page. That's going to make you have to design out your home page. Some of your WordPress themes, every page looks exactly the same, and that's not really going to teach you much about WordPress. I really want you to have a home page that you're now going to have to figure out how it works. Alright, let's go back to our dashboard. In some cases, if you install a theme, you may be able to find instructions on how to work it. Now in this case, this theme put in its own little appearance menu item. Not all of them do this, just keep that in mind. And now you've got some things that you can change. Here's stuff on the home page you can change, the header, the footer. So this is how this theme works, and now you can start working with it. But not every theme's going to do this, so just keep that in mind. And this allows you some customization. Like we're in the next the next WordPress thing, we're going to learn how to use the editor to customize the style sheet. And here's the styles that are written for this particular theme. You can see there's quite a bit. And a lot of these themes will be this robust. So nice thing is somebody else did all this coding. They also tested it. They made sure it works. Everything is crisp and clean with no caffeine. So it really can save you a lot of time unless you really like doing this yourself. Now if you're really good, someday maybe you build your own theme and sell them. It's a possibility, and of course you have to be really good because these other themes that you'd be competing with are pretty good. Alright, so every theme's going to have their own way, and you'll just have to figure it out. That's going to be your hard part, but you'll have plenty of time to do that. So after you have a theme and you've designed out your home page, you're going to create pages. So you have a pages menu, and this is pretty self-explanatory. You got one page already. If you don't want this anymore, you could trash it. But to add a new page, we just click Add New. You can call it what you want. So maybe we have a page that's called About Us, and then I put in all my content here. And there's even a way for you to insert an image. So put your cursor where you want your image to go, and then you've got a place to add media. And if you need to upload files, you would hit Select Files, find them on your computer, upload it, and then that adds it to your media library. And it'll also place it in there. And you'll have other options, like do you want it aligned left, aligned right. You can add your alt tag. So it walks you through all of those things. And then you could always look at your source code to see how it put the code in for your image. There's a good chance that there is a style that controls all of the image styling in your style sheet for the theme. Once I have a new page, I can change what I want the URL to be right here. And then there might be other options you can put in here. There's also this thing called screen options. So right now as you're looking at the page, it shows you the editor and it shows you some meta box options, but there are some other things you could add. For instance, you could add the author field. If there were more than one author assigned, or more than one user to your WordPress site, and you can have more than one user. You just add as many users as you want. They each get their own unique name and address and password, and they can log into the WordPress site just the same. And they can have different settings. Not everyone has to have admin settings. You could set somebody up as just an editor or an author. Alright, so there are different things that you can do here. Once you have your page ready, you can always save a draft, by the way. So if you got going but don't want it up yet, you could save the draft. And then when you go back to your pages menu, everything is saved, but it hasn't been put to your site yet. So it's not available as a page that people can go to, and it'll be marked draft. So now I can just go back to that page anytime I want, finish the page out. When I'm ready, I would hit publish. If I want to preview it before I actually publish it, I can hit preview. It actually opens a new window, which you have to remember to close when you're all done. So this is what it's going to look like after it publishes. And I can close that. So I would just hit publish, and now my About Us is in there. Posts work pretty much the same way. There is one post in there already for WordPress. It's almost always hello world. So I'd add a new post. Post is kind of like news in a way. So if this was a comic site about my trip to San Diego Comic Con, maybe I write a whole little article about my trip to San Diego Comic Con, and this is where the content goes. And notice that it puts in as you put the title in and start working, it'll automatically give you a URL, and you can always go back and change it, but it reads what you have for here and makes a URL for that post. Here are my categories. My default one is called uncategorized, but maybe I create a new one and I call this one events. I add this new category, and now I can save this draft. It's going to change the URL. You'll notice that it puts because of how I did my URL structure from the beginning settings, you'll notice that events gets added as a category. Can people go to your category pages? Yes, they can. And then all that does is it has a list of the blog posts that have been assigned to that category. Alright, so that's a blog post, simple as that, and I can publish it whenever I have it ready, and then it gets added to my blog. So you'll do about 3 to 5 of those. You'll do 300 to 500 placeholder content, unless you really want to write it out, and place some images, just so you get an idea of how that editing works. Once I've got blog posts and pages, I'm now ready to change my menus. So by default, I don't really have anything in my menu, so I'm going to need to create a menu. Right now I have a default one that I've created called main, and there's one page in here. I'm going to remove that ugly one. I'm going to add the about page. I'm going to add actually both the home and about us. If you don't see something here, make sure you toggle view all, and then you can check the pages you want to add to your main menu. By the way, let's do this from scratch. I'm going to delete that and then recreate it. So by default, you may not have one, or it's going to put a default one in there for you. So I can actually change this to call it main, and I can put pages in here, and then I hit create menu. And now I have a menu, and I can edit this anytime I want. I can reorder how I want things to go. So if I wanted about us to be the last page, I'd do that and make sure you hit save. Even if I want, let's say this is sample, and even though that's the name of the page, which it'll pull in, maybe I just want this menu item as a menu to be just called sample. So I can actually change the navigation label without changing the title of the page. And then I save that. So that's what's going to show up. Now here's where the theme wants, hey, where does this go? So just because you have a menu doesn't mean you've put it anywhere yet. So you can go to Manage Locations. And depending on the theme, there will be places you can put it. In this case, there is only one place that this theme lets you put it. So I'm going to assign the main menu to the primary menu. And I hit save. Let's go take a look at how that affects my website. For this particular theme, different themes will treat menus differently, so you will have to kind of figure that out. Alright, so for this particular theme, it puts the menu below this image. Not the best place to put a menu, but that's just how this theme works. So now you can see that those have been added to the main menu for this theme. I probably wouldn't go with this theme if I was actually building a site out. but you get the idea. So that's how we work with menus. Make sure you put a terms and privacy policy page, and then if it allows you to do a footer menu, and I don't think this one does, that's going to be an issue. What you may have to do is put it into a widget area. So let's talk about widgets. If I had a privacy and policy, you'll notice that here's the default sidebar. Oh, this does have a footer area. So what I could do is create a new menu, and I don't have a terms of use page. I'll show you what it looks like anyway. So I could create a new menu. I'm going to call this one footer. Create the menu. Now if I had a terms of use page and a privacy policy page, I could click those and add that to my footer. I don't have those yet, so I'm just going to do these other two, but let's pretend that this is privacy policy and this is terms of use, and I just put them in there. And I save that menu. Then once I get to the widgets, widgets are sort of, think of widgets as places to put content on your site in certain areas. Every theme is going to have a different widget setup for this. So what you're seeing here could very likely not be what you have. But I'm gonna put my menu in footer area 1, and I just look at all of my. It looks like this theme actually has a lot of its own custom widgets that you can put in. The one I'm looking for is custom menu. There it is. So there's two ways to do this. I can click, drag, and drop it. That's one way. Or if I click on custom menu, you can see that I can choose what widget area to put it into. So I'll choose footer area 2 and hit add widget. Now it puts it over there for me automatically. And then I can give a title for this widget area if I wanted to, and I'll just put important website information. You wouldn't have to do that. Maybe you just have the links, and I'm going to choose the footer menu to add. I hit save. Once that little thing is done, we'll see if that shows up on our site. Alright, and I don't think it worked because sometimes it requires all of the footer areas to be filled out. So I'm going to just put some blank text widgets, and text is sort of your universal widget that allows you to write custom HTML in a widget area. My guess is, and this is my experience, when you have a footer 1, 2, 3, they all have to be filled in or none of them show up. So if I get them in there and we hit save, and it should say, as soon as you put it in there, it should save and update your site, but it's maybe a good idea. Sometimes you have to put at least an empty text widget in there in order for any of the footers to show up. And this thing just made a liar out of me. So I might have to do some more figuring out as to how this theme works. In some cases, let me just check something. Sometimes I have to maybe create a home page in order for the home page to work. Not quite sure. So you can see that I'm sort of figuring out how this thing works. Yeah, it's still not pulling in a footer. Alright, so I've got a lot of figuring out to do with this particular theme. It may not be that's how we set that up. Alright, so I'm going to keep moving on, but you should find a way to put terms of use and privacy policy in some kind of footer or a widget area. To a footer, or I'll put widget menu. Either or is fine. Okay. If your theme requires some plugins, maybe you'll figure that out. Go ahead and add those. Some of them will need it in order to work. Perhaps there could be a slider that you need to have. And so it'll tell you what the name of it is, and you can always put it right in here. So let's say it had display images as one of the plugin names. You would search install that one. Let's go display widgets. So it would tell you the name of the plugin to go look for. Oh, this is searching the plugins I have. Obviously I have to hit new first. So okay, so you have to hit new, and then to search for plugins, display images, and then you would be able to find the theme you were looking for. That's if that one was what it was called. Maybe it wasn't. The I don't know, display image, is that what it's called? I thought there was one called that. Maybe not. Okay, so maybe I would have display widget, and you can search for theme. We're going to cover this more in the next module, so don't worry. So here's display widgets. So then if the theme needed this widget to have the theme work, you could then install it and activate it. So those would be the only plugins you need to do for now. And then a lot of times these themes are going to let you place a logo file. And this part gets a little tricky sometimes. Now in this case, in the header area, it says I can do my own logo. What's kind of crazy here is that it doesn't tell you what the dimensions are. And then unfortunately that's more often than not with these themes. How big should that theme be? I don't know. I think it's going to try to put it right here. So you could try to look at a demo. If you could find a demo of this theme, then perhaps you'd be able to figure out what the dimensions of that logo is supposed to be. So that's going to be a little trial and error for you, and I can't say that there's a quick way of figuring that out. If they don't provide you, in some cases they've got some links here. Maybe this would help. Let's open this up. In this case I've got the Cordillera theme. It's opening this up. Maybe the developer has their own website on how to build the site. It looks like he's trying to sell you a premium version of this website. So here's the free version. Yeah, so yeah, he's trying to sell you their premium version. So he offered you a free light one, and then you can go get the fancier version of this site for $40. Not seeing where they have any. This is documentation. Alright, so here we go. There's some better information on how to get this to work. Now, even here though, however, it doesn't say how big the image should be. So we could go back. Let's go back. Just trying to help you out here because this is always the hard part to figure out. So they've got a free demo. Let's go check that out. This is better than the free demo live view you're going to get out of WordPress. Let's just see what pulls up in this demo. Come on, you can do it. So here it comes. They didn't put a logo in there. If they had put a logo in there, you could do an inspect element to see what kind of view size you're going to get there. Just looking at the title, it says it's 209. If I go by this div class, so this is called name box, logo box, text left, this is the div class. It looks like it's 219 by 56 pixels for this particular theme. So what I did there is I did inspect element. You'd have to have that turned on in Safari under your advanced preferences. And then I can look for the div box. Right here is the div box where the logo goes. and then it gives you the dimensions there, 219 by 56. So that might be what I start with. In Photoshop, I would design a logo with the pixel width of 219 by 56. I'd have a transparent background on that. Put my graphics in there, save for PNG. Make sure you're doing tiny PNG to get that file down as small as possible. And also give that file name a meaningful name. So if you were Jimmy's what would we call it, barbershop, it would be Jimmy's barbershop logo.png with hyphens in between each of those words. Alright, that would be how I would do that. So that's how we do all the configurations. Try to find an image logo for your site. Don't just let it be the words. This is where they pull in. If you see your theme, they're pulling in your site title, and they're pulling in the tagline. A lot of them will do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I was building the site and I liked how the text version looked for the site title, I would go with that. But most people want their business logo there, so that's what you're going to do. I think I've covered everything that you need to know for the assignment. When you have your page finished out and you've got your 3 to 5 pages, 3 to 5 posts, all of it with content and images, you've customized things, make sure you're not just using the theme default images. Go and actually replace this image that's in the background if that's how your theme is built. Put your own content in there. That's really the point of this exercise, is for you to learn how to put your content in there and configure your theme. We'll customize styles and we'll customize plugins in the next assignment, so don't get started on that yet. Make sure you got this down first and you know how to create pages, menus, and place content. And then take a screenshot of your home page, upload that to D2L, and then I'll also be able to visit your site and check it out that way as well. Alright, so if you have any questions about any of that, make sure you let me know well ahead of time, and good luck on your WordPress project. Alright, take care.